Megan says she's on the way.
Okay, we have a quorum, so everyone is here. Megan is on her way. So she won't be absent for long. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 4:32. All in favor? I think we should do introductions because we have a new person at the table, so we haven't met everybody. My name is Barbara Laird, I'm the chair, and also town councilwoman for town of Poughkeepsie.
Hi, Brian Martinez, Commissioner of Finance, City of Poughkeepsie.
Chris Jen, Commissioner of Public Works, City of Poughkeepsie.
Tom Colgan, Water Superintendent, Town of Poughkeepsie.
Andy Learn, CPO, Town Engineer, Poughkeepsie Engineer.
Rebecca Edwards, Town Supervisor, Town of Poughkeepsie.
Randy Allstat, Water Plant Administrator.
I'm Dottie Ginobili, Poughkeepsie Water Plant Board Director.
Great. Well, nice to meet everybody. I'm Dylan Harris, new attorney for the board from Whiteman, Osterman and Hannah. So looking forward to working with all of you.
Great to meet you.
Good to work with you.
Welcome aboard.
Yep, welcome aboard.
So the first thing on the agenda is approval of the July 1st minutes. Does anyone, we need to do this public comments first?
No, that's next.
Oh, yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
The second part on the agenda is public participation.
Yes, so I had some comments on the meeting minutes. Megan Zeisler was not at the July meeting and she was listed as being in attendance. And also the meeting minutes don't indicate that you went into executive session and then when you returned to regular session, you took a vote to accept the proposal from Whiteman, Osterman and Hannah. And that should be reflected in the meeting minutes. So
That's correct. Those should be made. Those corrections should be made. Thank you.
okay, and then the other thing that I was going to say, but now I see you do have the microphone. Yeah, it's great that you were deciding to record meetings. But if you went back and looked at the video, you could hear Randy because he was sitting up that end. But like Brian Martinez, if you were sitting down that end, he really couldn't hear you. So I was going to ask people to speak up, but Randy just said that Dottie took care of that with hopefully with a microphone. So that would be hopefully that would be helpful. Thank you.
It still would help if people try to speak a little bit above normal. So we get it recorded.
Teacher voice?
Yeah, teacher voice.
Yeah.
Anybody's ever asked me.
Demonstrate that, Randy?
No, never be louder. That's
I don't think anybody's ever asked me that.
There you go. It's your fun. Listen, wait.
Nice and loud. everybody.
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
I have a question before you went any
Yeah.
farther. Last meeting, you guys went into executive session to discuss the lawyers for the joint board. Do we go into executive session again to discuss the engineer for flow study and for the board engineer?
Are you asking if we're doing that today?
Yes,
Well, it's on the list as number 5.
I know. I just
I
wasn't
don't
sure.
know if you want to do that. I mean,
I wasn't sure what
We
like
took a
that.
vote last time. The minutes should have that in there.
I wasn't here for the last meeting, so I just wasn't sure as to what, boy, I'd used to do that right out of the hole if you have to do that, or you wait till you get down the line for that. I wasn't sure.
Randy, we're ready to do that now, right?
I think, yeah, we had we're skipping ahead here, but what happened was we set up committees to review the proposals. And we picked 2 different engineering firms and a new lawyer.
Right.
So that's, and we've kind of proceeded in that direction because that was the board's decision that we should do that.
Yeah, it's 35 days back and I should remember, but I don't remember whether we took a vote after executive session on engineering firm as
No, we
well
did not.
as, we did not.
We didn't
Okay.
have all the recommendations because someone was out of town.
Me,
That's what happened.
I was
Okay.
like,
Tom was out, Tom took a vacation.
Yeah, so I got the.
That's what happened. Sorry, my mistake.
I got the ratings after the last board meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mine and Brian's were late.
All right,
back
so
to
my
July.
apologies then. I'm sorry to Andy and others that I've spoken to that I was not correct.
Oh,
about
yeah,
what we did
in
last
my
time.
notes, need Tom.
Yep,
Neat down.
Okay.
right.
Need Tom. So your question was, are we going to do that in executive session or is it just open
Right.
to the public?
Yeah, I wasn't sure how it worked.
I don't know.
I think if there's anything, really in particular on, numbers and proposals that is protected confidential information that needs to be discussed, you could do that in an executive. If everyone kind of has their idea of where things stand and it's just a matter of approving who it's going to be, then I don't think you'd have to go into executive for that.
Okay.
A related question that came up is whether we need to have an engineer at each board meeting or not. Whether the engineer is someone we view to be as on call rather than attending board meetings. I mean, there's some board meetings where it's really important and there's other board meetings where, there's not, how are you? There's not anything that comes up. And so the idea was to sort of make it on a case by case basis rather than just automatic. I think we pretty much always need counsel. But I don't think, in terms of an engineer, but I haven't been on the board that long, so maybe other people have more experience.
I think I think that was the consensus that we had at the last meeting, but my question is, who's the person who makes the final call?
The board.
The board would look, but we wouldn't know the minutes for the next agenda. We wouldn't have the agenda for the next meeting. How would we decide, like, if you're saying it's a case by case basis?
Who makes the decision
call
about whether the
for
engineer
the
is
next
coming or
meeting?
not?
'Cause Randy kind of knows what's in the pike.
Well, that was
There's something
the discussion was that the plant superintendent really understands the engineering aspects. So unless there's something special that he feels he needs an engineering support for, or unless the board decides in advance that we need to call an engineer in. But as a routine matter, we don't need an engineer here.
I would think that the chair could make that, assessment for each meeting along with Randy, but also that any board member who wanted to request that the engineer be present could certainly do that, right? And that way, if anybody thinks there's a question coming up that they're gonna need to ask about, that they could ask for the engineer to be present. Or sit the extra engineer, the additional engineer, right? In addition to Randy.
Sounds good to me. So we just skipped ahead to 5.
Yeah, sorry about that. We have lack of clarity.
Okay, so we'll get all that written down. But anyway, we're going back to the agenda. Number 3, plant status report, Randy.
And we are gonna amend the minutes, right?
I will,
Okay, thanks.
I'll do it quickly.
Great, thanks.
We had a pretty good month last month. We finally got through our control problems. It was nice. The control problems, ended up in our money in parts times of about $50,000. So that's why I put in a note to do a transfer from a contingency that amount. As far as quality, I put this together without the senior operator here, and there's a number on effluent turbidity of 0.29. It should have been 0.029, and sometimes in our logs they're written wrong. So that I do it could have been 0.29. As our turbidities usually go between 0.03 and 0.05 into with a standard of 0.3. The big thing left on the project now is to get the UPS units put in. There's been a lot of problems with the coordination of that and that's using the such, but it appears we'll be getting that done and hopefully we'll have it done this month. And that will finish that project. CPL and they will finish their project. It looks like the final budget cost is going to be about 540,000, so under budget. That was pretty budget, so we didn't do that. Good.
Can you talk a little bit more about what happened with the I think this came up, this was in last month's meetings, right? Just what happened with the controls and what your assessment is of.
Yeah, what what happened was Friday, 5/6/17 and 23:40, the plant shut down due to surge, electric surge. And the electric surge ran through our plant. And with the loop system, we just kept, other things would fail. And we had a lot of failures. So we ended up having our money come in and, on the 18th, he was in for 10 hours. On the 19th, he was in for 10 hours. On the 20th, he was in for 10 hours. And basically what we're doing is confirm this power surge occurred online via input training in the ozone building, began diagnosing of communications, assisted running a plant in lit mode. We were basically running on without our controls. And it was kind of scary, but the operators did really well with responding to it. Since then, we've gone back in and put surge control everywhere. So because we put UPSs in backups in. So we actually had a surge 2 weeks ago. And we saw things flash, but we did not lose the plant. So I think we've done fairly well with that.
What is causing the surges, and is that a new problem?
No, it's not a big problem. There's a problem with our pumps take a lot of power. And what happens is when they come on, they're just a big surge into the system because it's a lot of grab. And you could use a variable speed drive or you can use a soft start to make that work better. So it doesn't do that big shift. We also pay, I think, like $20,000 a year more in our electric because of that surging.
Yeah.
So,
Those pumps downstairs don't have VFDs on?
well,
Is that in your capital plan?
we haven't put it in the plan yet.
So I think the surge itself, what it brings up for me is the need for us to better understand our SCADA system, because the SCADA system needs to be modernized. It's a much bigger project, and I don't think we have our arms around. And if we're going to discuss that more, we probably need to go to executive session.
The surge thing?
But as part of the SCADA system on the front end. Because I mean, that's your control system, right? It's what you're referring to.
I think we've responded to it well.
Yeah.
We also are ordering some more monitoring equipment so we can really keep a better eye on our electric. That's in the works. And we do feel we've been good at getting the controls done. So I think we're pretty good shape.
I guess what comes to my mind though is, since we've been using the same contractor for years, and as you mentioned in the last meeting, that he's the only one in town, the only game in town, which I'm not convinced. But the fact that we didn't have surge protection at key spots, and that it wasn't identified as a requirement gives me pause.
Well, this is larger question too, of variable speed, what is it that we need to get this system modernized?
Even for every pump station's on VFDs, so it ramps up and ramps down easily, which helps control water going from the city to the town, from the plant to the town, and stuff like that. But VFDs are definitely one thing that will make the electronic end of the plant more efficient and not such a whack to the system when they come on and off. And but they're,
Sounds like you could save some money on electricity too.
yeah,
So
exactly.
the savings in electricity might pay for some of the VFDs in the long run.
Yeah.
Can I think of it, a VFD is sort of like using a clutch and starting from first gear, just slowly,
Like the speeds on the fan, low, medium,
Yeah.
high.
instead of just going.
Instead of like a light switch, where you just full power. Right.
More like a dimmer switch.
Like a dimmer switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
So it
right.
comes- you pull it on.
Gradually comes up and gradually comes down.
That helps me understand that.
But your car analogy is appropriate, because if you put your foot on the gas really hard, you're not going to get as good gas mileage as if you took it easy.
Sure.
But you might have to swap out the whole pump system for the VFDs.
Yeah, exactly.
If the pumps are rated for VFDs is one thing, if they're not rated for VFDs, to the electrical current it takes to run them, that's a whole nother
The
operation.
problem with these pumps are so big that
Yeah.
the engineers keep saying we only want to put EDFD.
Yeah.
So but we did put 2 VFDs in our low lift out of the 4 pumps. There was a statement down there that there wasn't room enough to put 4 VFDs down. So we did get 2. We haven't done any major changes on our high lift pumps I think we put one new one in 2004. But other than that, we haven't done anything most. So definitely can get together some stuff. We do have another control guy I'd talk to. And maybe it's time to bring him in and have him go over all this stuff to get hit with his thoughts.
We went to VFDs in Fairview in 2006 with the upgrade for IBM and all that stuff.
So I'll do that. I will get this person to come down and review all our notes of what happened and see if we can give me a kind of some kind of report.
So, are we gonna go the route of doing, a request for proposal? Because I think what this speaks to is, and Randy, you and I've talked about this, while we've been making good investments in the plant, have we really kept up with modernization? And so I wonder if we've done, a real, capital asset review, so we understand what's most vulnerable, what needs to be done, and we have a true multi-year plan. So I know most, plants like this, they call them different things, CARMS models and all the other stuff, right? But it's the capital asset review. So
We have selected an engineer for the RFQ project.
right.
So we could have that engineer come in and give a detailed look and a report to confirm or find our weaknesses.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, 'cause with the SCADA stuff, SCADA gets outdated so quickly before you know it's 20 years and you're working with older stuff and they don't make the stuff, something that we all use the same contractor for all this stuff. And I know on our end, our SCADA is weak. I mean, whatever is good, but there's a lot more it could be doing, but it's, it becomes more hands off for the general person because it's very, I won't say high tech, but in-depth stuff. It's not as simple, you gotta be into that automation and all that stuff. It's definitely its own world, that's for sure.
And it's all connected.
Yeah, and we're connected here, and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's all together, kind of one big system per se.
So, I forget what SCADA stands for. We're throwing around the term.
Supervisory control and data acquisition.
Thank you.
There you go.
So, and that's a long acronym for think of it as,
It's the brain here.
your IT system for the system. So, it's kind of like your Wi-Fi or whatever, you're going to get certain information available in an automated fashion, possibly to the operator's phone, instead of having to go and observe physically. Those are some of the benefits.
We don't do anything to phones because it opens the door for cyber attack.
Exactly.
So we have 24/7 here. If something goes on, the operator can call us.
Yeah.
So many plants do use phones.
Yeah, so I guess I'm making that point because as Tom said, it sits on top of the operating system. The mechanicals, electromechanical equipment that we would expect to see in a plant like this. So that's kind of separate from the actual electromechanical gear, pumps and lifts and all that kind of stuff.
Well, this gate is also telling it what it's got to do too, what the pumps and everything are doing. So it's working with it.
Yeah.
What it does, it monitors the equipment and then allows the operator to make changes with that equipment without going to the equipment.
Yeah.
Pretty much everywhere. So the filters, everything's controlled.
It's the motherboard.
Pretty much the brain. It's the brain.
It's the whole brain.
Yep.
And if it goes down, you can't operate everything at manual. But that becomes labor intensive and easy to mess up.
How are we doing on plant status report?
I'm doing pretty good, I think.
I just didn't know if we were done. We kind of got signed.
Yeah.
Contract negotiations.
I just wanted to put in, on the contract negotiation. IMA, no, that's the IMA working group. I thought maybe we should say we just had a meeting with the IMA working group and it's kicked off and went well. That's all I was thinking. And then, like I said, the cost to do the work for the ozone or for the controls was $50,000. So what I'd like to do is get approval to transfer $50,000 from contingency to the repair and maintenance equipment line.
And that money's already been spent, so
No, it hasn't.
the 50 grand for
Oh, yeah,
our
yeah,
money.
it hasn't paid for yet.
Yeah, I mean, he's already performed the work.
Right, yep.
So it's just really a matter of paying the bill. So I moved to transfer 50,000 from contingency to the appropriate general ledger line to allow the plant superintendent to pay the bill for the contractor that performed the work to fix the filters.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Was that done on an emergency basis, I assume?
Yes.
Yeah.
We got it emergency through the city.
That was unique. Okay,
Just curious, you called, at what point did you call Armani in? Within like a short period of time after?
Right, yeah.
After the,
Well, it was 2,300 and he was in by 85. I think he came, I think he came in right away. And that's been good. You know, he come in really quick. He was definitely.
That's one of the things that's important with all SCADA stuff too, is a lot of these places are big companies are here, they're there, but like the localness of having someone that they're here in 20 minutes or they're here in 10 minutes is crucial with all this stuff, because like I said, you gotta be certain individuals to get in this stuff and it gets sporty. That's one thing about that makes Armani great. I mean, the following weekend when there was other problems, he took a plane from Pennsylvania to here. He was here in an hour and a half and got picked up to the airport, Dutchess Airport, following weekend and stuff was going on. So like his dedication to get here is, it's, he'll go get here one way or another. Planes, trains, and automobiles, he'll get here.
okay, number 4, operating budget status.
So we're at 59% of the year and we spent of the operating funds 50%. So there's still money that needs to be moved around, but I think we will be able to move things around and cover those other expenses that we have. Yeah,
so one example of that is your contingency. You've spent nothing out of that. We just spent 50 grand.
right.
So that's why you've got this.
No, I don't have that in this number that I'm talking about. The numbers are on the back, the contingencies in the different location.
Is it,
I guess what I'm trying to make is that your expenses we're more than halfway through the year, but your expenses are a total at 46%, correct?
Yes,
So we've underspent based on a month,
straight line.
straight line burn rate.
Right.
So part of that's because we haven't spent any contingency until now.
In the report of receipts and disbursements, I'd just like to flag something that we talked about last week in budget meetings briefly as we were sort of beginning to review the budget, and I just want to make sure we talk about it here, and that is interest. We're holding a lot of, we have a lot of reserves, and the interest we're making, if we've got those accounts in NICLAS, we ought to have income from that, more than $200 so far this year. We should be making a good bit more about if we're sweeping into NICLAS accounts. So just want to tag that as a place where our income should be greater. And that might help us with a little bit of the margin on things like our contingency fund. So it's something, and I know you had already mentioned it, but it's something I want to make sure we keep an eye on over the course of
So
the
I
year.
received a package from NICLAS and talked to one of their advisors. And the short answer is that because the town and the city are already members of NICLAS, and because the city is the current administrator, I can open up a separate account in NICLAS. If we were just a plain Jane Water Authority, we would not be able to participate in NICLAS. But because the city is the administrative arm of the joint water venture, they can allow it. So I've tasked my deputy with getting those accounts opened. I would hope by the time we meet next month that we have those accounts open. And I'm going to open up a separate NICLAS account just for joint water, so that we keep everything nice and separate. So
Great, thank you.
it's $500,000 to $1 million. You're looking at At today's rates, which are gonna
Change.
slide precipitously over the next year, we still should be talking about $15,000 to $30,000 in interest, not
Yes,
$100.
yes. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Good news.
That's a good catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how long the town's been participating, but I know with the city, we transitioned a couple of years ago as
To my class.
as we began to experience these 5% high yield savings rates. It's we've gone from 27,000 to 600,000.
Next, yeah, the town has started doing that as well.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
I mean, you can, it's totally liquid. You can sweep daily. NICLAS is really, I know there's a lot of complaints about state government and associated entities, but NICLAS really, I think, is something New York State's doing really well.
Yeah, and so I guess the legal aspects of this are that since the town and the city both participate in NICLAS, and by that specifically, both the town and the city had to pass resolutions called municipal cooperation agreements to participate in NICLAS. So we've both done that. We're both co-owners of the joint water entity. So I take it, now I've got a council member sitting right here. I take it that we have the intent of council to, yes, participate in NICLAS. Why wouldn't we pull in all of our resources, our assets, joint water being one of them? So it's one of those times where things just couldn't have worked out any better if we had planned it. So
Good.
We kind of skipped over number 5. I'd like to say that we did the review of the proposals, and for the flow study, Martin Ludici was selected.
with Judas.
The Judas. Judas.
I blow that all the time.
It's a hard one.
I'm with you.
For the legal, we picked Whiteman, Osterman, and Hannah, and for the engineer, we picked T&B Engineer Time Long. And they were all scored and went through purchasing, so.
So the council we voted on last time,
Right,
but we did not vote on the flow study and the water board because we were waiting for final numbers. The
right.
water, the engineer.
I think that the board did authorize the group to pick somebody.
Okay.
So we did have to pick somebody.
Yeah, so we can just make it official.
I want to make it official, just
Okay.
I move that we accept the recommendations of the committees for the RFP work for flow study and for the water board engineer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
I just want to thank CPL for the work they've done over the years. It's
Yes.
been much appreciated. Definitely done a lot of work over the years that's made the plant better.
I haven't sent out information to the engineer, so I'll be sending it out tomorrow, because I want to get the board approval.
Okay,
Great.
thanks.
Okay. So we covered everything in 4 operating budget. RFPs are done. Number 6, you mentioned, Randy, the IMA working group just met. Does anybody want to tell us how it's going? Or how long you met, or?
So I'm happy to start. We felt we need a library of materials to make sure we're all starting with the same document. We had a good first meeting, but we waited for Mr. Harris to get here. Welcome aboard to help us pull together and make sure we have the right documents and that we are sharing them all together, including the original agreements, any amendments to those agreements, third-party water contracts. And so we talked on the phone Friday about getting the materials together so that we all have a common shared set of documents to begin with. And we sort of laid out a plan of meeting monthly, and maybe a little more often than that, once we've got everything together, to review these. And, I think it went well.
So the makeup of the working group is there are 3 representatives from the town, 3 from the city. And there are some folks with some significant experience, I think both from the town and city representatives. For example, we have the former Commissioner of Finance, Bill Brady, who's now retired, who is on the city side of the committee. We have also a consultant, a management consultant that has been working with the city for a long time. Bill has particular experience from the city side with joint water, with the board, and with all the contracts. And I think the same can be said with the town. There's some people with that go back. One of the members,
Jim Chowley,
Jim, who's actually been a resident of the city and the town.
he served on both city council and the town board
Yeah,
at
that's
various
fair.
points, not at the same time,
yes.
depending on where he was living at the time. So he has some experience on both sides and goes way back on the.
So
on the
I think we have a deep bench, if you will, a deep roster. So that we can take, by way of additional background, this 1995 document, which has seen minimal changes, and updated for modern operations, and governance. And, I also want to say that the, tone, between the city and the town is, one of our goals is to conduct this, is in an amicable and professional manner, which, I'm really happy about. So.
Excellent.
We will also be, one of the first things we need to do after we get all the documents straight, so we know exactly that we're all on the same page, is to talk with a lot of different people about getting different perspectives on the plant's history and on, so that's gonna be the next thing. We'll wanna talk with, the heads of water and get expertise. It's a particularly good moment to have new council arrive because he'll be joining the IMA with us and hearing about different perspectives on the plan.
You talked about setting up a SharePoint.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so one of the members of the city team, James Nyko, is doing that. So, and he called me today to provide me an update, and I was busy at another event, so I blew him off. So,
Well, but thank you because
We'll
the city
follow.
is in fact paying for that consultant from city funds, right?
what's that?
The city consultant who's coming to
Yeah,
help us
we're-
manage that process.
we're
the city
adding-
is providing.
We're adding that to his membership as a city representative is a city expense.
Yep.
So, in as much as we're all
Right.
gonna pull on the same rope together, yeah, that's our contribution. So.
Okay. Number 7 is contingency transfer, which
We
we
did that.
covered, done, out of order, but it's done. Okay, number 8, old business. Does anyone have old business?
I got the letter from the Chippy people. Did everybody get that or was that
Oh,
just
Chippy.
me?
No.
I didn't get it.
And I was like, why did I just get this?
Yeah.
What letter did you get?
The, hey, we're coming in and as the Commissioner of Public Works. And that's why I didn't know if it was to the board or who that was to.
I got the same one.
Okay, just making sure that,
I'm on the loop. Yeah, they're supposed to be coming down this month.
yeah.
They're gonna go right by us, so.
There was some matting down. I seen an email that there was some matting down or something like that.
Cover the cables, right?
Matting is first and then the cable afterwards,
Right,
right?
yeah. The matting is concrete.
Is it
Concrete.
two stop parts or they're
Really
doing it
doesn't
all?
say
at the
that
same time?
much. Be
The
honest
thought
with you.
was they were gonna put the mattresses down. And we're gonna, what they do is they protect the utilities.
Can I ask you to put that in the PDF and send it to the board members?
Yeah, that's exactly why I asked, 'cause I had that feeling.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of old business and Chippy, did anyone find out more about this grant money that they're dangling in front of some people's noses, but not?
Well, so there's a couple of funds that they have available to host communities, which include green jobs funds, particularly for disadvantaged areas. They did come and speak to Mayor Flowers and to me, and I think to other supervisors and mayors about those funds. Those are sort of separate funds that people can apply for specific projects, for environmental projects, for green jobs projects, things like that. The larger question is whether or not they will seek a pilot. And also whether or not there are funds available to the water plants. I mean, I've been on the phone a lot, trying to figure out and was on a call with Chippy and with, Brian on Friday to try to ascertain whether funds that might be available to the water plants would be part of a county pilot for Dutchess County, that would go through the IDA or would be separate. And in addition to that, it does not appear that the latter is the case. They have made a pilot proposal to Dutchess, but Dutchess has not accepted it. It was withdrawn from the IDA. So there's a larger conversation going on there about pilots. I think that the piece that's germane to the joint water plant is whether or not funds would be available to water plants in the county as part of Chippy's community, host communities
Post-community agreement.
agreements. And so far, the farthest we've gotten as of Friday afternoon is a clarification that water plants had been in conversation with them, thinking that that was a separate fund. And Chippy says, no, we've set aside X amount of money for Dutchess County. And if part of it goes to the water plants, then it gets taken away. They're calling it a zero-sum game. So I think we're still investigating.
So, Chris, I heard you
Yeah.
mention, why did Dutchess County?
They think they can do
refuse the
better?
Money.
Do they think they can do better?
I talked with a couple of people today and there is some lack of clarity. Yes, a pilot is usually in lieu of taxes. I asked directly Friday and Chippy representatives acknowledged that they do owe taxes to towns and counties through which it passes. Apparently measured on a by mile basis. The pilot would be in lieu of those tax payments that would be due to all taxing jurisdictions through which they are passing. How you value that is another question, because
you
that's a
measure the
special
miles.
franchise. It's a special franchise, like a natural gas pipeline, like a power line, like anything else. It's a utility and it can be valued for assessment purposes.
I would guess that we probably don't have any taxing jurisdictions, at least in our region, that look like this. Right? So the ability for our assessors to come up with a good value is one of the first questions we're asking.
Right.
And so, which then leads us to this idea that, well, why did they go directly to the county? And the answer that we got was that has been, it's just an easy practice, frankly, is what I gathered from the corporate response was it's easier to deal with the county rather than 50 municipalities.
Well, the company, which is a private company, wants to stabilize what they owe. They want to offer what looks to them like uniform payments to counties and towns along the way. But there's an open question. There is an Office of Special Franchise Valuation in ORPS, the state office ORPS. And so there is a mechanism by which to try to ascertain what the value is, not assessor by assessor,
Yeah.
town by town. There's a mechanism to ask the state to what the assessment value of the whole 339 miles is, and then how you divide that.
So
up by-
things have moved very quickly. I can tell on Monday. It is absolutely amazing that perhaps no one has approached ORPS because this is a statewide issue.
I have not yet reached out to Ulster. I know that Chippy has withdrawn their pilot proposal in Ulster. So you may want to reach across the river and talk to folks there too. But I think there's a larger conversation to be had here.
It was just with the county executive today. So,
Yeah,
okay.
I think we have a whole lot of questions to ask about what's most advantageous financially in terms of the plant, the joint water plant, and the entities that fund the joint water plant. So I made a bunch of calls Friday. I made a bunch of calls today. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, so interestingly, I guess one thing I might add, just kind of a little additional commentary is I think one of the things that we're asking folks to consider is that a park on the waterfront is not the same as water production on the waterfront.
That's right.
So
So a case might be made that the water treatment plants are an important part of any pilot.
So that's not measuring just mileage. What Brian said was the
That would be
plain
meant.
mileage of the
Right.
river in front of the town and the city is.
So-
not the
so
same
think
as
about
the
it.
Benefit of the treatment
So
center.
Barbara, they were offering these pilots payments in lieu of taxes, right? Which normally, if you're gonna build a piece of property and let's say you want low income housing, you want a tax break. So you go into the community, you ask them for a break on some known amount of taxes. Okay. So in this case, we don't know the value of the line that they're laying. So there's the first issue. But the mechanism itself was set up originally as just this pilot. And a couple of the other water plants came in. And frankly, without town and city at the table and said, let's do a carve out for just the water plants. So good on them. Really appreciate the initiative. That carve out was a small percentage of the total pilot. And as Rebecca mentioned, there's a pot and about 10% of that pot was supposed to be a carve out for a little less than 10% of the whole pot. And that's the host community agreement. So you have a pilot and as a sub part is a host community agreement. And so what we're doing is going back and questioning the whole thing.
To be fair, though, I think that the water plants, the other water plants in Dutchess that we talked with Chippy about that, had been advised by the IDA that it was not part of the pilot. It was a separate fund for the water plants in addition to.
Right.
And that's not what we heard Friday.
Right.
That's why
The
we're all
corporate perspective is,
Yep.
here's a big pot. How you guys split it up is up to you.
right. Yeah, they're seeing it as a zero sum game. So
I'm surprised we didn't get asked to the table in the first place. Then.
Well, again, to our neighbors' credit, there are a couple of folks who have been asking for city and town participation, but they were asking that inopportune times, particularly as both administrations were changing. And you know how things go. A couple months later, you ask again.
Right.
You know, so
Okay.
Yeah, and I think practically speaking, to have a pilot, you have to meet an exception to real property taxation. So in order to do that, typically it's going to be ownership by an IDA. So that might be why they just kind of bypassed and went right there. Because there's a few counties like Rockland where the towns are actually involved, school districts negotiate. But by and large in New York State, the IDA is going to do the negotiations. They're going to say, here's the value. Hope you like it, which is good and bad, you know, in different measurements. And as far as special franchise goes, the state measures that by the cost approach. So it's going to be what's the cost to actually build the thing. And then you've got physical depreciation, functional obsolescence for excess construction costs and operating costs. And then external obsolescence, which would be like your cost of water, changes in materials and external factors. So they've got a whole pot. I've foiled them many times for different towns to get how they come up with these calculations, and they're very protective of it, to say the least. But I do know some experts that actually have valued pipelines and different things. So there is people out there that can do it.
you're already earning your pay.
glad you're here.
Real property taxation is.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Very, I
one of
like.
the other nuances too is that the city of Poughkeepsie has its own IDA authority. So, you know, there's some other questions there.
Well, and the other thing is that the Dutchess IDA is specifically, its goal is to provide tax breaks for job creation. And this is a really clear case in which there is no job creation here. It starts in Quebec, it's going to New York City, it's going to power 1 million households in New York City. It will create a lot of jobs in Queens, but it will create 0 jobs here in Dutchess. So it's really unclear what the basis for a pilot would be. Although Albany County and other counties have granted pilots, but it's coming through. I mean, some of this is part of it's terrestrial, part of it's submarine. So we're in the river piece, but they're doing eminent domain and all kinds of stuff up north on the overground part. But anyway.
Can I just ask a simple question? Doesn't it sound a lot simpler just to tax them?
Well, that's the question,
But
is
how
how,
to find a value for the tax? Wouldn't it be easier than?
that's the big question that we're raising here, right? Is how one would, yes, if one can find that valuation.
What entity would be the taxing entity too?
So the underlying question is, how much is this worth?
Yes.
Would be the town.
And then how much of a discount if I'm going to be entitled to?
And would a pilot be appropriate? Is the pilot the right way to go? And if so, then the other water plants, would we want to work with the other water plants to attempt to take a card out.
I just have one last question. Do we have any idea when all this has to be resolved and all these?
Their
questions have to be
request was
answered?
that it be resolved by the end of the year.
They will begin operations in 2026. So
So we have until December.
Well, their request, their corporate request was that it be resolved by the end of this year. And so remember why we give pilots, right, to investment groups. It's to provide, or to developers, it's to provide the investors supporting the developers certainty. So they're looking for that certainty to be provided around the first of the year, 2025. So they can then do whatever they're gonna do to do the development piece. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Sure.
Any other old business?
We hear anything back, excuse me, we hear anything back from Wappingers on water? No?
No.
you know why the village shut down its own water system?
I don't think they shut.
Or or they were proposing to take water from,
The PFO, or it was PFOAs or whatever it was that they were debating on. Having to put some big filtration system in their plant currently doesn't have, from what they were saying here that night.
it's a PFAS issue then. Okay.
And they were trying to debate if it's cheaper to just purchase water from us or if it's worth it for them to do the upgrades to their plant to do stuff.
Okay.
Okay,
But that was a couple months ago and I haven't heard nothing since.
I think Jim Moran was contacted by their lawyer. So it might be when you get around to it, then they contact the village and see where they're at.
Do you know their issues, Randy? Because
I haven't heard.
I heard they were unable to filter.
Yeah, they don't have the filters to do it.
Yeah, they like it's a situation.
Yeah, they've been having problems ever since they left us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was wondering, because that day when they were here, they were very urgent about, wanting to do something
Well, right,
at a fast pace. And now it's been like 2 months and I'm like, okay, where are they?
Yeah.
I
right.
mean, we don't think we ever come up with a rate
Yeah.
or never finalized a rate for them, I believe. But they were supposed to send Brian some stuff.
What's that? Oh, yeah, didn't receive anything.
Yeah.
And I think now that Dylan has joined us, one of the big things we're wrestling with is third-party contracts, right? And which there've been a number of them over time. They're complicated. Many of them are through, I mean, one of them's with WWA for a number of different customers. Then we have others, and now we have a proposed additional one, right? So getting some clarity on the value of those third-party contracts and making sure that we're handling those properly. As a resident of the town or the city, who's funding the project and funding the water, how do we handle those third-party contracts? It's one of the crucial issues for the IMA, and I think for the board to have a full, clear understanding of those contracts.
Absolutely. I reached out to Jim today and he's got more modern documents electronically, and I guess he has boxes that are at Wallace and Wallace. So he left Wallace and Wallace, he's at Jacobowitz and Gubitz now, which is in Orange County. So he's going to get me the electronic documents this week, and then I'm going to work with him and Craig to get the boxes just to kind of dig through and see what's there and to kind of get a full picture. So it's moving, but slowly to start. So once we have the documents, we'll start firing away on that front.
Thank you so much.
if old business is finished, anyone for new business? Okay. So I make a motion that we adjourn. We
Second.
all in favor?
Right.
It said, can I?
Yes.